spent a lifetime career in Transnet, what used to be before it, and then I was offered a job as HOD at Doornfontein. And when I started there in 2007, there was, I think if there was 5 ladies in the entire department, I mean students, or if there was 10, there was a lot. So it does me a lot of good to see there's a good number of ladies here. Of course, good to see the gents as well. But yeah, that's not what I intend to talk about. You know, I know about when I myself, as I said, when I was there, I kind of learned a few things about students that I didn't know, and I hope to share with you today. But if I remember back when I was at school, and I think that a lot of you would have shared the same experience, school wasn't that hard. You guys here are slightly above average intelligence. And if you're slightly above average intelligence at school, then it's not that difficult. You can cruise along and you can pass. So at the end of my school career, I didn't have all that many distinctions because I didn't work too hard. I remember my physics teacher once told me, he said, "Johan, you're a distinction candidate." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "But you're too lazy to learn." I said, "Yes, sir." Any case, so by any case, then I studied civil engineering at what used to be Wits Technikon. It wasn't even called Wits Technikon at the time. But, and then eventually, as I said, nearly 40 years later, I was given the job to run that same department. And I found that students were still the same. The problem being that, well, it's not a problem, it's just that most of us come from school and we're used to not working too hard, and then you think you can do the same at university. And then, at school you have teachers and parents encouraging you, but you come to university and you're all on your own. So remember, once you have children of your own, when they come home with a school report, you don't say to them, "You're proud of it." You say to them, "That's something you can be proud of." Because you tell them that you're proud of it, they work for you. You tell them that's something that you can be proud of, then they work for themselves. And when they get to varsity, they actually can work for themselves. They don't rely on the backup of the lecturer or the parent. So remember that for 20 years down the line when you have kids. Any case, so when we're at university, we continue that habit, and there's a need to socialize. And you're now an adult, so you can do what you like. So studying I can do that tomorrow. I'll do that before the exam. I'll cram before the exam. And that is what a lot of us do. Unless you're one of the older students that has been in industry or have been around the block and that's now coming to study civil engineering, you suddenly find that this guy is the top guy in the class. Why? Because he wants to study. He wants to know everything. There's a story about a small child that asked his grandfather about good and bad in life. His grandfather said to him, "It's like you have in your mind, you have 2 wolf cubs, the positive one and the negative one, the good one and the bad one. And they're always fighting." So the kid asked, "But Grandpa, which one is going to win?" Grandpa says, "The one that you feed." So remember that, because this principle applies everywhere. It applies in all areas of life. It applies in the friends you keep, the personal relationships, and your work relationships and your study. So if you feed the academic part, then the academic part will win. If you feed the socializing part, then obviously the socializing part will win. And usually your colleagues around you say, "Well, 51% is good enough." if you pass, it's good enough. You'll get a degree like that other guy that's studying so hard. He's the guy with all the distinctions. He's also just going to get a degree. It's not going to matter anything. Because yes, to some extent it's true. So I found that there's 4 types of students. There's that one type that's the academic guy that's got all the distinctions. He's the genius, the Einstein of the class. And maybe there's a few of them. And there's probably a few of them around here. I hope there are. And then there's the other guys that in the first and second year they battle to get a 50. They get all these rewrites and all that. And I remember at UJ we had a term for if a guy has failed a subject twice, he's out. We called it an F7. That was the code that was used by the academics. And I had to, in many cases, in my final year class, there was, it would also apply. And if a guy comes into final year and he's got one subject that he's now failed twice, and he's passed all the subjects, he's got 2 to 3 subjects left. I can't just let the guy go, so I take his file and I go to the dean and I say, come on, we can't chase this guy away, give him another chance. And it helps because then at least the guy gets to get his degree. But then there's the 60 to 75 group. They get these 60 to 75% marks. Those are the guys that don't have to work too hard. They work, and why do they get these marks? Because they understand the concepts. They don't struggle in the exam to understand the concepts, how to tackle these questions. If they get a curved ball, they know how to handle it because they understand the concept. And then, of course, there's the 45 to 59 guys, as I said. They just pass, but they don't really understand what the subject is about. And they cram, and they have all kinds of interesting ways to remember. And sometimes they get caught out, but let's not go there. But the point is, yes, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the question is, will you go to a doctor to have an operation, and if you know the doctor only had 52% in his final exams? Better still, will you fly on the aeroplane if you know that the pilot only had 50%? So that means he can either only land or he can only take off. So now he's taken off. How are you going to get back there? Okay, you get the gist of the idea. So now, here you go, you've got your 55% average degree, and you've got a job from some consultant company, and you walk in there, and the first day you report at HR, and they take down all the information. It's a medical maybe, and they introduce you to everybody in the firm that's important, from the CEO down to whoever you have to, maybe the lab manager or whatever. And then the second day, now you knock on the door of your boss. They say to you, your boss is that guy you met yesterday, Mr. So-and-so. His office is there. You remember we went there? You have to report there tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock, you knock on the door, and the guy shows you in, and he talks a bit about university life, and where you've come from, and where you want to go to, where you want to be in 10 years' time. Do you have a relationship? Are you married maybe after a couple of years at varsity? Some people are, and all that kind of thing. And then he says to you, listen, I've got a job for you. This is a very important, it's not a big job, but it's very important, and I need it as soon as possible because we need to carry on with this project. And this is essential part of it. And he explains to you what he wants, and there you go. And then in a day or two's time, you obviously bring this back. And he looks at what you bring back. And then this is where it comes in, whether you're the 50%er or the 60, 70%er. Are you someone that understands the concepts? Because then you would have solved the problem that he gave you. Or don't you have a clue and you wrote a lot of stuff there that you think will satisfy him? And you expect him to now help you with some of this stuff and all that. You see what happens? There's two parts in this company. There's the one crowd that gets all the interesting, challenging jobs, young engineers. They get these challenging jobs and all that. And then, obviously, in engineering, there's a lot of menial work. In my time, things are very different now, but drawing and well, even CAD work and survey, doing surveys and plotting and reducing the survey books and all those things were very menial. And that is where this other crowd go. So if you're one of the guys who understand the concepts, you get these challenging jobs and you progress in the firm. Now you sit in this other group, and there's a couple of you there, and these guys are all moaners because they don't really understand what they're supposed to be doing. They're getting all this really menial jobs it's not really a challenge. And so they talk amongst each other. It's because we are white guys. All these black guys get all the good jobs. Or because we are girls, only the guys get the good jobs. Or the other way around, because I'm this race, only those guys get that. That's what happens. And after 3 or 4 months, you start looking for another job. Maybe you get a job at a municipality or somewhere where you don't have to really apply yourself. So, some guys do work at the municipalities, but let me tell you, I've seen the state of some municipalities nowadays, and I hear what the guys tell me about the work they do or that kind of thing, and things are not what they should be, and they don't have the challenges there that and also then those guys are the guys that battle to get professionally registered because they don't get exposure to challenging jobs, to jobs that really take a lot of thinking and applying the right concepts. There you sit with your engineering degree from one of the top universities in the country, and you become a box ticker, which is just another name for an artisan or a technician. And so that is, you need to decide where you want to be, where you want to go. That is just the way it happens in industry. So, and then, obviously, yes, these guys that complain about how they were discriminated against, you must remember that everywhere you go in life, you will be discriminated against sometime because of some reason, because human nature is that if you're not part of my group, then you're not really, there's something wrong. You all know that. And it happens here as well. And there are always people that will discriminate against you because you come from Wits, or because you this race or that gender. So remember that it's going to happen. You've got to handle it. I remember one of the girls that actually qualified here. It was the chair of the Joburg branch some time ago, Bridget Kirst. Her father was also a SAICI president at some stage, and she used to say about this, people moaning about being this, because they they're a lady or because they're this or that. So you're an engineer. Get out there and do it. So remember that. You can. Then obviously after starting to work, remember that you have to be, and I'm not going to tell you all the detail about this, but you need to be registered professionally with the Engineering Council. You can register as a candidate immediately after you qualified or later. And but there's a new act out that says that by next year, everybody that works in engineering must be registered. The EXA rules say you cannot apply for registration before you have 3 years of practical experience, 3 years of work experience. Now the guys from the Technikon, they at University of Technology, they also always want to try and say, yes, but I've done this year of works integrated learning. Doesn't count. It's postgraduate experience. And they count it from the day you got you wrote your last exam. So in other words, if you finished your 4th year, you've got a job, but you've got one subject outstanding, and you're only writing that at the end of that year. And then you get your degree. Your 3 years start after that year. This year is good experience, but it doesn't count for EXA registration, although you can put the experience in there. But it's usually the guys who get really the high-flying jobs that register after 3 years. Most guys register after 3, 4, 5, or 6 years. Then they feel, and they've grown professionally enough to be registered. Don't expect that you will be registered after 3 years. They don't have to register you. How the registration process works is that it's a peer review process. So that means if you apply to register as a professional technologist, you are reviewed by professional technologists. If you apply to be a professional engineer, you are reviewed by professional engineers, not by technologists or technicians. A technician is not reviewed by an engineer. It's a peer review process. So remember that. So the guys that's there, they've been through the process. They know what it takes to be a professional. And EXA has a long list of outcomes which you have to comply with. So once you've got your degree, immediately start and write out a diary of the jobs that you're doing. And what you've done, where you've done it, what degree of responsibility you were given. If you say there, I was involved in. Now, I used to be on the EXA registration committee, and we used to laugh at this guy. The guy says, I was involved in this and this and this. Or he would say he was involved in site meetings. Now remember that at a site meeting, there's sometimes, after the meeting, you know, it's a big meeting, and okay, it's end of the month meeting, and okay, now we have a bit of a braai. And the guy who made the fire and who was doing the braai, he was also involved in this meeting. Remember that. So you need to say what you did. Did you chair the meeting? Did you get technical input? Or did you just sit there and take a nap? Obviously, the first site meeting you attend, you don't chair the meeting. But that is how you grow in your career. So remember that. You need to say what you did and what your level of responsibility is. It's all set out. In the time when I was at EXA registration committee, there was 1 page of guidelines. Now there are pages. Everything is described nicely for you. And if you read that thing and you don't understand and you don't know how to fill it in, then you're not ready for registration rate. So it's like a contract document. The first time you read a contract document, you look at this thing and say, wow, what is this? Depends on whether you understand the concepts or not. It's easier to understand it or not. In any case, the point is, after you've gone through it and you've worked with some guys on contract documents, you get to a point where you can fill the whole thing in yourself, then you take responsibility for it. So that is the type of thing that they look for. Everything is described. You need to read those documents, download them, but as I said, from the first day, diarize what you've done. And as soon as you can, download the documents so that you can get your supervisor to sign off on the stuff that you've done in your first and second year. Because by the time you hand in your application, you have to have the signature of your supervisor. Now what happens, now especially during lockdown, a lot of guys come and say, supervisor succumbed to COVID, or supervisor now in New Zealand. That happens because there's lots of guys going overseas. Let me tell you, I chair SAIC's membership committee, and I see all the movements of members. So I have the final sign off of that schedule every month. And there's a page of resignations. And 1/3 of them resign because they've got to pensioning age. Another third complain about the money because they have to fork out themselves, and their boss won't pay for them, and they don't see the value, and all that. And then there's another third, a whole 33% says working in New Zealand, immigrating. So it's a sad state of affairs, but yes, it is. That happens. So, in any case, as I said, keep good track of what you've done, where you've done it, and what level of responsibility, how you've done it. And also, if you do drawings and designs, keep copies of that, because you can always refer back to it. And you need to say, obviously, why you did the designs, how you did the problem solving. I'm not going to go into the detail of that now. We can have a special session on that if you want it. But I think that is all I want to say for today. If there's anything you want to ask, I can try and answer. I have a friend that he's chairing the Railway and Harbour Engineering Division. And let me tell you, that guy works. And he's got challenges. But there's other guys that in that same division that a previous chair, I invited him to SAIC's office one day because we were sorting out some books, and there were some books that he could look through and say if he wanted them. And Kamashan said to me, sorry, I can't come now, I'm busy packing. I said, packing? Yeah, I'm leaving on Friday for New Zealand. And then when he's there, he said, now I'm doing the things that I only used to talk about and were given finger exercises where I used to work. So, and when you are in government and you find that you don't get exposed, I have I'm a professional technologist, and I have a WhatsApp group for technologists, and they ask about registration. And the one guy yesterday said he's working in a government situation and he doesn't get exposed to designs and all that. And I said to him, fine, make friends with a person in a company that you deal with. First, build a relationship. Because if you ask the guy, help me to get some more experience, you're not going to get an answer. But first build a relationship, and that goes for everywhere you go in life. You first build a relationship, and then you can get a person to help you, to give you some designs to do, to take you out to sites, show them what you're doing. If you're only sitting doing in the office, looking at plans, and so build a relationship and get people to help you to get the experience that you need. That's essential, because some guys in some places, yes, will be getting good experience, some places not. Some guys in some companies would be getting one type of experience only. The problem with extra registration is you need to have problem-solving experience. Now, the easiest problem-solving is design. So most of the guys ask you about design. You need to show that you've also worked on site. So make sure that you get some site experience, even if you take your leave and go and work for the contractor on site for free, that you can say that you have site experience. The question is that if you work for a research facility like CSIR, what about that? Does that experience count? Now, that experience, that research experience counts very well, especially for the first couple of outcomes that they require, the problem solving and the design outcomes. You design a research project. I was lucky when I was in Transnet, I was working in a research environment where I could come up with innovative solutions to problems that I remember I developed a thing that I wanted to patent, and the guy said to me, yes, you can patent it, but it's got to cost you 20,000 rand to patent those days, probably today 100,000. You're never going to make the money out of it because it's a small thing. But so you get the opportunity to do that, but you need to get construction experience, site experience somehow. And if you actually now do these experiments in practice, if you, for instance, now have some experiment that you want to do on a road, and you go and do it in practice, obviously that's site experience, because there you project manage the job. So you need to get, and remember, make sure that you know all these things about the environmental aspects and the ethical aspects, because those are the things that the guys catch you out on. That you need to know, and you need to be able to give examples. And the environmental aspects, there's so many things that people overlook. If you are designing or building a building, have you made access for people with disabilities? I mean, that is a social part of it, and that kind of thing that people don't think of. It's not only the big environmental aspects. There's many aspects that you can include. Okay, as I said, you need to understand the engineering concepts first of all. That's the first thing. That's the basic. Obviously, then other things that you need are social skills and all the things that you need in life. It's difficult to, usually they say engineers are not good communicators, which is not always true. Some engineers are better communicators than others. But the one thing that I would say that are not taught is this thing about building relationships with people around you. I had those days in railways, the technicians, there was no technologists, it was so long ago. And engineers, they were kind of a bit apart. And you sit in a meeting, you could pick out the technicians by the way they dress. And I had this one colleague, and the engineers would come there with a jacket and tie, very neat. And he would always pitch up neatly dressed in a suit. I said to him, Ian, but he said, no, sit in a meeting. These guys don't treat you like a technician. So if you're a youngster there, check what the older guys wear. Check how they conduct themselves. Make sure that you mirror yourself, that you look like a professional, that you don't come across as this youngster that's still got the university anything goes attitude, Because in Industry, things are sometimes a lot more regulated, if I can put it that way. Some companies are more how would I say, conservative than others. So check the dress type of thing and the way people conduct themselves around when they have coffee and all that. And that's another thing. When you have an EXA interview, remember those guys are your peers. They are on the same level as you. So talk to them like they are your equal. Don't talk down to them, and don't be scared that these guys are some demigods. They're just ordinary guys. So, and that goes for any interview. When you go into interview, obviously, you're nervous. But in any interview, if you go to an interview, make sure that you've studied the company that you're being interviewed. Make sure that you can ask some good questions about the company, some intelligent questions that's not obvious from their website. And remember, they're going to check your Facebook and your LinkedIn profile before the interview, and they're going to use that to determine whether to employ you. Another unrelated story. This lady, her husband, she's into public speaking and that. And her husband told her, no, we were going to go on Saturday, we're going to this motor car dealer because we want to buy a new car. But we're not going to buy anything. We're just going to look around what's going on there. So they make this appointment and they get there. So when they get out, the salesman comes. Good afternoon, Mr. So-and-so. If you don't mind, I checked your LinkedIn profile. I see you're into children with learning disabilities. My kid has this problem, and they start talking about children with learning disabilities for half an hour. And then when they go home, the husband tells his wife, we're going to come back next week. I'm sure that we'll find something that will suit our, what's the name here? What did this guy do? He built a relationship. He checked out what the interests of this person is. So make your own. Go and look. You know who's going to, go and look at some of the people at that company, and so that you can talk intelligently about the company, what their goals are, and ask intelligent questions. A lot of people in engineering is having difficulties in the present situation in South Africa. But there is a lot of engineering going on, so engineering is not dying, and it will never die, because there will always be a need for people. The one thing that you are taught here is to solve problems. And I always say an engineer or a technologist or a technician is like a cat. If you throw a cat in the air, it will fall on its feet. Because we are taught to solve problems, to be able to think ahead and to think. So if you can't find a job, you will find something that you can keep yourself occupied with and get some money. And I know that of guys that's gone into all kinds of businesses, making a huge success. And then coming back to engineering, because they found an opportunity that suited them. It's not an easy question to answer, because there is no right answer for that question. For some people will not find jobs, but some people will find very lucrative, very interesting, challenging jobs. The thing about a job is you want to go to work, not dreading to go to work every day. If you dread to go to work, then there's something wrong, either with yourself or with the job. So you need to make a decision on whether to stay there or not. But it's not always easy to then move to another company, especially if you have dependents. So you have to have this ability to be happy with what you have. If you're happy with if you have the ability to be content with what you have, my wife always say, make a bouquet with the flowers at hand. In other words, look at the things around you which you do like, and focus on them. There will always be the thorns on the flowers as well. Remember that.